demonstration is essentially a kidney simulation. So this is a grade 12 U concept, the idea of urine formation and kidney filtration. Generally, it's a difficult concept to grasp just based on kind of notes and lecturing and things like that. So a lot of the time something hands-on is good for that. You could do this either before or after you teach it. So if you did it before, it would be more along the lines of you telling them what each thing represents and kind of going through it with them step by step. That way when they do get the notes and do go through the textbook, let's say, they have something concrete to connect it to. If it's easier or you'd like to do it this way, you could also do it after. So you could teach it through whatever it is, textbooks, videos, lectures, however it is that you'd like to teach it. And then you would use this at the end and kind of have them make the connections of what they already know to these concrete kind of ideas. Either way, it'll work great. As you can see, I'm not doing it in front of a class, and that's because my placement is in English this semester, so I don't have that opportunity. But if I were to be doing it in a class, I would have them kind of in their own groups, and each group would have their own set of equipment to be doing it along with me, right? Because it is a little bit hard to see me just kind of doing it up here. I'm also going to time-lapse this video because it does take longer than a couple minutes, and you'll see why as we go through it. But essentially, your materials are very simple. So you have 3 kind of plastic spoons, and they are color-coded for a reason, and I'll get to that. An eyedropper, 2 clear plastic cups, one labeled renal vein, the other labeled renal artery. The renal artery cup should have some water in it. You can vary the amounts of water between the groups. It's not that important how much water they have specifically. But there's also beads within the renal artery cup. And those beads represent different things. So you have little yellow beads. They represent urea. You have little white beads, which are salt. You have larger white beads, which are your white blood cells. You have large red beads, which are red blood cells. You have large green beads, which are proteins. You have small green beads, which are amino acids. And you have little blue beads, and these little blue beads are glucose. So your students would receive kind of this list. It wouldn't be up to them to remember what each color represents, but they would kind of know that, or you'd go through that before, however you want to do it. The way that the spoons correspond is that the white spoon is a salt transporter, and we'll see why that's important. So salt transporter, so it corresponds to the white beads. This is a glucose transporter, okay? It corresponds to the blue beads. And this is an amino acid transporter, which corresponds to the green beads. This mesh, this is carpet kind of underlay. You could also use latch hook canvas. Either way it'll work as long as it's kind of a mesh with big enough holes for some beads to fit through, but not the big ones. And then this is just a styrofoam bowl that I've labeled nephron, represents the nephron. This is the glomerulus, by the way. Okay, so what you're going to do is each group's going to have this renal artery cup with all their beads in it. And you're going to place the glomerulus over the nephron, okay? This idea that it filters what comes into the nephron. And you're just very simply, you're going to pour the contents of the renal artery over top and into the nephron bowl. The idea here is that, the small beads will go through, but the large beads will not, okay? So set the renal artery aside. You're going to take what the glomerulus kind of picked up, so these larger beads, and you're going to put them in the renal vein cup. Okay. So these things are in the renal vein. Okay, and these things, if they look into them, you have the large beads only, so you have white blood cells, red blood cells, and you have proteins, right? So they don't make it into the nephron. Okay, so you would use the amino acid transporter spoon, so the green one, to remove the amino acids. Okay, so you're going to take out the little green beads with the green spoon. When you take these out, you're putting them into the renal vein cup. Okay, so once you've got all the green ones out, so now what's left in your nephron should be yellow beads, so urea, white beads, salt, and blue beads, glucose. So now, still modeling complete reabsorption, you're going to take your glucose transporter protein and you're going to remove just the glucose. Okay, so that process is complete reabsorption, right? We removed all of the glucose and all of the amino acids, so there's none left in the nephron. So now we're going to model incomplete reabsorption. We're going to use the white spoon for that. So this white spoon is going to remove salt. And I mean, you can come up with your own number. It depends on how many beads you put in here. But I'm going to use this white spoon to remove 5 salt beads, only 5. Okay, so now when you're looking what's left in your nephron, you have liquids, you have water, you have urea beads, and you have salt beads. So now you could either ask or tell them, depends on what their knowledge base is on this process already, what's missing from this renal vein. Okay? This renal vein now has all of these components in it, but what's missing from the renal vein? So the answer to that is water. Hopefully they'll come up with that. So this is what the eyedropper represents. The eyedropper is going to represent osmosis. So water is going to move from the nephron into the renal vein via osmosis. So your renal vein cup now has water, which it got osmotically from the nephron. It also has all of your large beads, so it has your white blood cells, your red blood cells, and your proteins. And it also has the small beads that we extracted from the nephron. So now the question becomes, what's left in your nephron bowl? Right, we have salt, we have water, and we have urea. And these are the things that will be excreted as urine.